Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Walking with Christ. So today's episode is going to be on the commandments of Jesus. Now, before we start, I want to make a quick disclosure saying that no one's perfect. I'm not claiming that I'm perfect either. And you can find this in the first book of John, chapter 1, verse 8, that says, anyone that claims they are without sin is deceiving themselves. But Jesus also says in Matthew chapter 11, verse 30, that his commandments are not meant to be burdensome, and they are in fact meant to be light. So I therefore think that these commandments are worth striving to keep until the day of Christ comes, when God's work within us is finished, as it says in Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. So before we start, I just want to refer to the book of John, chapter 3, verse 16, which says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that by believing in him, we will not perish, but receive eternal life." So salvation is ultimately by faith, and this faith is set apart from works, so that no one can boast, according to Paul in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 to 9. Now, although salvation ultimately does come from faith, as James chapter 2:24 says, our works justify our faith and how much we actually do believe in Jesus. So according to Jesus in the book of Mark chapter 12, verse 28 to 31, he states that the two greatest commandments are loving God with all your soul, mind, and heart, and loving your neighbor as yourself. And of course, if we look at the 10 Commandments, loving your neighbor as yourself pretty much encompasses those commandments. The key is that we must love everybody, including our enemies, according to the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 44. So the 10 Commandments give us an idea of how to love, but Jesus shows us exactly how we are to apply our love towards others. So here is a list of the commandments according to Jesus. It's very important to seek God first. When we seek God first, he provides everything that we need to give thanks to him and to love him and spread our love toward others. We must always show mercy. We must forgive endlessly, even if we've been wronged multiple times by the same person. It's also important that we don't judge or condemn others. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we're all imperfect. We should also settle matters quickly with our adversaries while we're all still here on earth. We must not exalt ourselves, but we must humble ourselves before God. We must refrain from making any promises or oaths. According to Jesus, we must only say yes or no. We must let go of all anger, refrain from lusting after anyone outside of marriage. Anger and lust are actually equal to murder, adultery in the heart. You also must not divorce unless your partner is caught being sexually immoral. We must not resist an evil person, but we must always go the extra mile for them and give more than what they demand. We must not also despise other Christian groups. As Jesus states, whoever's not for him is against him. We also must admire youthful people, because according to Jesus, you must actually become like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven, which I think is really cool. We must always guard what is sacred too, as Jesus says, do not give pearls to pigs. He also tells us not to store up treasures on earth, which can be harder said than done, but it's also important not to set your sights on things that are earthly. You must also have complete faith in God and do not deny Jesus before others. We must also not give false witness against our neighbor. So that's a list of the commandments according to Jesus. Thank you so much for tuning in. And one last thing I want to say before I go is we must always be prepared. According to Matthew 24:36, Jesus can return at any time. Nobody knows the day or the hour when he's going to rapture the righteous. So we must always be prepared for that. Anyways, God bless. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.